He said, "You can't even talk properly." Now he asks me for deadlines. When I was 8, I thought silence would save me. I thought if I just stayed quiet long enough, maybe my father would stop calling me useless. Maybe my brothers would stop mocking me during dinner, mimicking the way my voice tripped over itself like a broken cassette. Maybe my sisters wouldn't roll their eyes when I tried to order at restaurants, whispering my order for me with a condescending smile, as if doing me a favor. My name is Leo. I'm 33 now, and I run a team of 75 software engineers across 5 time zones. But back then, I couldn't even say my name without a pause. LOL, Leo, I'd say, while the class snickered and someone inevitably called out, "Spit it out already." Every morning was a battle. My throat would tighten the moment I opened my mouth. My tongue would seize up like it had forgotten the shape of words. And that was before anyone said anything cruel. Once the laughter started, it was over. My chest would clench, my face would burn, and I'd just sit down, defeated, before I'd even stood up. Speech therapy helped a little. My mom insisted. She was the only one who did. Every Thursday, she'd walk me 3 blocks to Mrs. Elliott's small beige office that smelled of cinnamon tea and dry erase markers. "We'll get there, sweetheart," she'd whisper, squeezing my hand. "Your words matter." God, I loved her for that. But love wasn't armor. Not when you lived in a house like mine. My father, Peter, was a contractor, a man of calloused hands, rigid routines, and zero tolerance for weakness. My stammer, to him, was a defect, an embarrassment, something to be hidden, fixed, or ignored. He'll grow out of it. He'd bark to relatives when I struggled to say grace at Thanksgiving. Just needs to toughen up. But I didn't grow out of it. I grew into it. My stutter became a cloak, awkward, uncomfortable, but mine. It was how I moved through the world. And everyone else treated it like a burden. Especially my older brother, Ryan. Ryan was everything I wasn't. Captain of the football team. Loud, charming, effortless. He could walk into any room and command it with a smirk and a joke. He knew how to use his voice, and he knew exactly how to use mine against me. One time, in middle school, he called me up in front of his friends and asked me to say PPP pizza just to make them laugh. I still remember the way my mother's face fell when she overheard. "Ryan," she snapped, but he just shrugged. "It's just a joke, Mom. Chill." It never felt like a joke. My sisters, Claire and Megan, weren't cruel like Ryan. They were just embarrassed. They avoided walking with me to school, never invited me to speak in front of their friends. Megan once told a teacher I was just shy, so I wouldn't have to introduce myself in front of her debate team. No one meant harm, not really. But the harm was done all the same. By high school, I'd stopped trying. I'd fake illnesses to avoid oral presentations. Skip social events. I lived inside notebooks and screens. In code, you didn't need a voice. Syntax didn't laugh at you. Variables didn't interrupt. Programs either worked or didn't. And when they didn't mock you for it. I taught myself to program out of necessity, and later, out of love. The logic, the structure, the clarity, it was the only language I felt fluent in. By junior year, I'd built a crude budgeting app for my mom that tracked grocery expenses. She cried when I showed her. "You're going to build things that matter," she said. Dad barely glanced at it. "Apps don't pay bills," he muttered. College was out of the question. My grades were solid, but we couldn't afford tuition, and Dad wouldn't co-sign a loan for computer junk. Ryan was already working construction with him. They'd come home covered in dust, cracking beers by 6, and smirking at my screen time. "What's the freak building now?" Ryan would joke, but I kept building. Nights, weekends, on borrowed laptops and public library Wi-Fi. I took freelance jobs for pennies, building websites for local bakeries and dog groomers. It was humiliating, but it kept the fire alive. By 24, I'd coded the back end for a mental health startup. My name wasn't on the masthead. I was a contractor, silent, background. But when they got funded, I got a check that changed everything. I moved out, bought my own laptop, started my own project. It was called SpeakSoft, a communication platform designed for people with speech disorders, stutterers, people with aphasia, trauma survivors. Not just a text-to-voice tool, something smarter, more empathetic. Predictive sentence building, emotional context recognition, tools I'd wished for when I was 12, staring at a classroom of laughing faces, praying for the words to come. It wasn't overnight. The first version was a disaster, but the second worked better. The third caught attention. A small nonprofit adopted it. Then a school district. Then a VC firm reached out. Leo Martinez, the associate said over Zoom. The founder of SpeakSoft? We've been watching your work. My hands were trembling. I remember nodding. Slowly. Carefully. Yes, I said. One word. No stutter. That day, I secured a seed round of $2 million. And that was the day my voice finally felt like power. He said I wasn't boss material, so I made him my intern. By the time I turned 27, SpeakSoft had 8 employees, 3 pilot programs, and a waiting list of special education departments eager to try our beta. I didn't celebrate with champagne. I bought my mother a new recliner. It was stupidly expensive, the kind of plush leather thing that adjusted to your posture and gently vibrated when your back hurt. She didn't ask for it. She would never ask for anything. But when she sat down, leaned back, and said, "Oh, Leo," like a long exhale, I knew it meant more than thank you. She was the only one who had believed in me when I barely believed in myself. She used to sit with me during those endless nights when I was still coding in our basement, listening to keys clack while the rest of the house slept. She brought hot cocoa. She never asked what I was building. Only, do you feel proud of it? That question used to sting. Because for most of my life, the answer was no. But now? Now I was building something for kids like me. For the scared ones. The quiet ones. The ones who shook in front of classrooms and lied about being sick just to avoid speaking. I wanted them to feel seen, heard, capable. That's when my father started calling again. It began with a short voicemail. "Hey, it's your dad. Just checking in." I didn't respond. A week later, another. "Heard you're doing something with computers. Good stuff. Give me a ring." I didn't. Then came the knock at the office. I was in our shared workspace, a renovated old laundromat we'd turned into something halfway respectable. Whiteboards, hanging plants, IKEA everything. I was going over UX changes with our product lead when I saw the silhouette through the glass door. At first, I didn't believe it. But there he was. Peter Martinez. My father. Dust on his boots. Wrinkles deeper than I remembered. Holding a bag of donuts like some peace offering he didn't know how to give. "Hey, Leo," he said. He looked at the sign behind me, the one with our company name. You run this place?" I nodded slowly. He glanced around, clearly unsure how to process what he was seeing. "This is nice," he muttered. "Lot of young people here." That was when Ryan walked in. I hadn't seen my brother in 3 years. Not since that awful family barbecue when he'd mimicked my old stammer in front of his girlfriend and said, "Classic Leo. Man, a few consonants." I'd left without saying a word. Now he was standing in my office, looking at me like he couldn't quite believe it. "Wait, you're the boss?" I remember how small he looked in that moment. Not physically, Ryan had always been built like a linebacker, but emotionally. Like the mask had cracked just enough for truth to peek through. "Yeah," I said. "I'm the boss." There was a silence. It stretched. No one seemed to know what to say. Dad coughed awkwardly. "Listen, your brother's in between jobs." Construction slowed down, and "You want me to hire him?" Ryan didn't meet my eyes. "Not charity," he muttered. "I've done some coding stuff. Took a course." I looked at him, really looked at him. And I remembered every joke, every shove, every time he called me broken. And I almost said no. But something stopped me. Because this wasn't about revenge. Not anymore. "Send your resume," I said. "You can interview next week. Like everyone else." He blinked. "You're serious?" "Dead serious." He did. He came in on time. He wore a shirt with buttons. He was nervous, which, frankly, amused me. But he passed the technical screen. Barely. He was green, but he had raw problem-solving chops and knew how to take feedback. So I hired him. As a junior. 3 levels under me. Reporting to someone 5 years younger. I thought it would be awkward. I braced for tension. Ego. But Ryan, he changed. Slowly. He stopped smirking in meetings. He listened. He took notes. He even, and this shocked me, asked me for help. One day, while debugging a permissions issue, he muttered, "How the hell do you keep all this in your head?" I just smiled. Same way I survived school. Quietly. And for the first time ever, he didn't laugh. He nodded. That night, he sent me a Slack message. No emojis. No gifs. "You built something amazing." I never said that. I should have. "I'm sorry." I stared at the screen for a long time. I didn't reply right away. I walked outside. Called Mom. "Hey," I said. She could tell from my voice. Something happened. "Yeah," I whispered. Ryan apologized. She didn't say anything at first. Then, "That's good, honey." And it was. It was the beginning of something. Forgiveness, maybe. Not forgetting. But moving forward. My dad once said coding was for keyboard losers. Now he tells his friends I run the firm. The strangest part wasn't Ryan working for me. It wasn't watching him wear headphones and genuinely try to understand sprint planning, or seeing him politely ask a junior engineer how APIs worked. It wasn't even the awkward coffee runs, where he tried to be friendly but still looked like a dog who'd gotten off the wrong leash. No. The strangest part was hearing my father brag about me. It started small. I overheard him on the phone one day, pacing outside my mom's kitchen, voice lowered, gravelly. "Yeah, Leo's got his own operation now. Whole team. Some kind of software for people who, well, folks that struggle, you know? Makes their lives easier. Real clever stuff. Clever stuff." This from the man who once threw a fork on the floor when I took too long answering a question about the weather. Who once hissed, "Don't embarrass me," before a parent-teacher meeting. I stood at the threshold of the back door, listening, frozen. "And Ryan's in there too now," he continued, puffed up with pride not his own. "Leo gave him a shot. Said he's doing okay." He said it like it was his story. Like it was always inevitable. And I knew, deep down, it was his way of saying sorry. Peter Martinez didn't do apologies. He did corrections. Actions. Rewrites of the past where he'd been a silent supporter all along. But I remembered everything. The school recitals where he'd fake phone calls so he wouldn't have to watch me stutter. The job fair where he laughed when I told someone I wanted to study computers. "He means trade school," he said. Something real. And yet now, here he was, calling me a success story. Smiling at the floor like he'd built me from blueprints and bricks. I didn't know how to process that. So I didn't. I focused on the work. SpeakSoft was growing. We just landed a pilot with the State Board of Education, a 6-month contract to test our platform in classrooms across 4 counties. It was the break we needed. I pulled 14-hour days, onboarding schools, rewriting back-end processes, fixing bugs that made me want to pull my hair out. Ryan stepped up. He stayed late. He didn't complain. I started to respect him genuinely. And then, something unexpected happened. We got invited to a regional tech conference. I wasn't going to go. Public speaking was still a sore point. I could lead meetings. I could pitch. But standing in front of a hall of strangers? Microphone? Spotlights? It brought back all the trauma of childhood. The frozen tongue, the hot shame, the laughter that always came too fast. But my team insisted. "Leo," said Alina, our comms manager, "they're giving you an award. Founder's Impact Honor. You don't have to do a whole speech. Just 3 minutes. 3 minutes. 300 heartbeats." I practiced every night for a week. In front of the mirror. Then in front of Mom. Then in the office after hours, standing on a box while Ryan fiddled with the projector and pretended not to notice how shaky I sounded. "You'll kill it," he said one night, out of nowhere. I looked up. "What?" He shrugged. "You've got something to say. That's all that matters." The day came. I wore a charcoal blazer, the same one I bought after our first seed round. It still fit. Barely. The conference hall was bright, clean, buzzing with people who had their own stories and tools and teams. My name tag felt too big. I didn't want to look down. I didn't want to see my old label, the kid who choked on syllables. But then I saw her. A young girl, maybe 13, sitting with her mom near the back of the audience. A lanyard around her neck. A tablet in her lap with the SpeakSoft logo glowing in the corner. She looked just like me. Timid posture. Bright eyes. Fingers tapping instead of speaking. I took a deep breath. And I walked on stage. "Hi," I said into the mic. The room quieted. "My name is Leo Martinez, and I wasn't supposed to be up here." A ripple of silence. I mean that literally. When I was 10, I couldn't say my own name without stopping 3 times. When I was 16, I skipped every presentation. I once faked appendicitis to avoid a debate. Laughter. Gentle. Not mocking. But coding listened. It didn't judge. It didn't correct. It gave me a place where logic mattered more than fluency. I looked at the girl again. She was watching me like I was magic. I built SpeakSoft because I wanted kids like me to stop hiding. Because I believe communication isn't about being perfect. It's about being understood. Applause. Real. Loud. Startling. I smiled. Didn't flinch. Didn't stutter. When I stepped off stage, I felt 20 pounds lighter. My father was waiting near the refreshment table. He didn't say much. Just reached out, clapped a hand on my shoulder, and whispered, "Your grandfather would have been proud." That almost broke me, because he'd never said that before. Not once. He didn't hug me, but he didn't need to. My sister once said I made the family look bad. Now she calls me when her kids need help. After the conference, everything changed, not all at once, but like thaw after a long winter. Slow, subtle, still fragile. Mom cried when she watched the video of my speech. I sent her the YouTube link with a quiet, in case you're curious. She called me at midnight, her voice soft and cracked. "I always knew you'd find your voice," she whispered. "I just never imagined it would be so many others too." Ryan brought donuts to the office the next morning. No jokes, just a nod. A rare kind of peace offering. But the real surprise came from Claire. I hadn't spoken to my sister in nearly a year. Our last interaction had been tense, her youngest daughter's birthday. She'd asked me to come early to help with decorations, then spent the entire party avoiding eye contact. When I gave her daughter a coding kit as a gift, she said, "Thanks, but she's not really into tech." That one hurt. Claire had always been the polished one, the family PR machine. Her kids were always dressed like catalog models. Her social media was filled with inspirational captions and picture-perfect smiles. I was rarely tagged, barely mentioned. She'd once told a cousin I worked in computers, but didn't really have a stable job. Now, out of nowhere, she called me. "Leo." Her voice was pinched, hesitant. "Can I ask you something?" I hesitated. "Sure. It's about Emily, her oldest. 13. Quiet. Bookish. I liked her immediately the first time I met her. She'd asked me what JavaScript was. "She's been having a hard time," Claire continued. "At school. Presentations. Speaking. She's shutting down." I felt my chest tighten. Claire paused. "She told me she feels broken." I sat down slowly. The words hit me like a cold wave. "She's not," I said quietly. "You know that, right?" Claire sniffled. "I know. I didn't know who else to call. So I invited Emily to the office, gave her a tour, introduced her to the team, let her sit with one of our junior devs who'd also struggled with selective mutism. I gave her a SpeakSoft tablet, not a handout, a gift. Told her, "This isn't to fix you. This is to help you fight." She smiled. Small. Brave. Claire hugged me when they left. A real hug. The kind you feel. And then came the letter. It was a Thursday. Rainy. We just finished a rollout for a charter school system in Oregon, and I was sorting invoices when Mom texted me. "Found something in the attic. It's for you. Come by when you can." I stopped by that evening. Her house still smelled like lavender and old books. She handed me a yellowed envelope. No return address. Just my name in shaky, cursive handwriting. "Leo." I opened it slowly. Inside was a letter, dated 2005. My grandfather's handwriting. "Leo, you're probably too young to read this now, but someday, maybe, you'll find this. And when you do, I want you to know something. You're the bravest one in the family. Not because you speak clearly, but because you keep speaking at all, even when it's hard. That takes a kind of strength most men never learn. Your father means well, in his way, but he's afraid of softness. He thinks emotion is weakness. He doesn't know that silence can be louder than shouting. Don't let the world shame you for how your voice works. Just make sure you never stop using it. Love. Grandpa." I read it 3 times before I realized I was crying. I hadn't even known they'd spoken about me. But it made sense now. The way Grandpa used to wink at me during family dinners. The way he never rushed me when I read aloud. The way he made me feel like I wasn't broken, just building differently. I looked at my mom. "He wrote this, for me?" She nodded, teary. "He asked me to give it to you when you were ready." "How did he know?" She smiled. "Because he had his own version." I blinked. "What?" "Your grandfather stuttered until he was 25. The ground shifted beneath me. He learned to manage it," she continued. "But he always carried the weight of it. He told me once that he wished he'd had someone to tell him it was okay, that he wasn't broken. I think he saw that in you." I sat there for a long time, holding the letter like a life raft. For years, I thought I was the first, the only, the lone stammering outcast in a line of loud men. But I wasn't. There was someone before me, someone who understood, and he left me words. Not polished, not profound, just honest. And sometimes, that's everything. He told everyone I was just the quiet kid until he broke down in my office. It happened on a Thursday. Thursdays were always packed, stand-ups, client calls, backlog grooming. I barely had time to finish lunch when Ryan walked into my office and closed the door behind him. He never did that. Usually he hovered near the doorway, cracking a joke or asking something technical, casual like we were still kids sneaking snacks in the kitchen. But this time he shut the door. Sat down. No swagger. No pretense. "I need to say something," he said. I looked up from my screen. "Okay." He exhaled, but it sounded more like he was trying to push out years of something buried. "I was cruel to you." I froze. He looked down at his hands, fidgeting with a stress ball he must have picked up from the break room. "In school, at home, everywhere. I made you feel like sh*t, and I thought it was funny. I thought I was just being a big brother, toughening you up." He finally met my eyes. His own were glassy. But I wasn't. I was scared. That caught me off guard. "Of what?" I asked. "That you'd be better than me." "And you were." "You are." The silence that followed was loud. He kept going. "When we were kids, everyone thought I was the star. Dad told me I had to lead, that I had to show the others how it's done. And you? You didn't talk much. So I thought, if I could make people laugh at you, maybe they wouldn't look too closely at me." He rubbed his jaw. "But you never stopped. You kept trying. You didn't hide behind excuses. You worked harder than anyone I know." I didn't know what to say. He stood up, ran a hand through his hair. "I don't expect you to forgive me overnight. I needed to tell you. Because you changed, Leo. And I want to change too." That night, I stayed late. I sat in the darkened office, staring out the window at the city, neon blinking over endless intersections. I thought about all the years I'd spent trying to earn his respect, his acknowledgement, a single moment where he'd see me as more than a shadow. And now here it was. Unprompted. Real. I didn't cry. I didn't say thank you. I just let the weight lift, one notch at a time. 2 days later, something even stranger happened. My father showed up again, this time with an envelope. Not dramatic. Just sealed. "Need handwriting. I wrote you something," he said, shifting on his feet like the floor was uneven. "Your mom said I should try." I opened it after he left. It was short. Not poetic, but earnest. "Leo, I was raised to believe that men didn't cry, didn't stutter, didn't need help. I see now that's bullshit. Asterisk. You taught me that. I'm proud of you. Not because you made money, not because you run a firm, but because you found a way to help others when we didn't know how to help you. Thank you for not giving up on your voice." "Dad." I read it 3 times. I didn't cry then either, but I did pick up the phone. "Hi," I said. He answered, surprised. "Leo." "Yeah," I said. "Thanks for the letter." He cleared his throat. "Yeah, well, you deserved more than I gave." We didn't talk long, but we didn't need to. It wasn't perfect. Nothing suddenly fixed, but something shifted. The next week, he invited me to dinner. Just him and me. He'd made pasta, burned the garlic. We laughed about it. At the end of the night, he asked about the company, about what we were building next. He didn't pretend to understand all the details, but he listened. For the first time, he really listened. And when I left, he patted my shoulder and said, "Next time, you cook." It felt like a truce. No, it felt like a beginning. They asked me to give a keynote. I almost said no, because it meant telling the truth. The invitation arrived in a glossy white envelope, buried between tech brochures and an overdue electric bill. I almost missed it. But the logo at the top, bold, blue, clean, made my breath catch. National Accessibility and Inclusion Summit. Dear Mr. Martinez, we are honored to invite you as a keynote speaker for this year's summit in Washington, D.C. Your leadership with SpeakSoft has impacted thousands. We believe your story exemplifies the intersection of innovation, empathy, and lived experience. It was signed by the executive director herself. My first reaction wasn't pride. It was panic. Because this time, there was no just talk about the product. No scripted case studies or pre-approved talking points. No safe corporate gloss. They wanted me. My story. The full one. With the stutter. The shame. The silence. The abuse dressed as discipline. The siblings who didn't speak up. The teachers who looked away. And worse, the voice I still sometimes didn't trust. I stared at the letter for an hour. Part of me wanted to say no. Say I was busy. Say the schedule wouldn't allow it. But that 13-year-old version of me, the one hiding in the library during oral exams, whispered, "You owe us." So I said yes. And immediately regretted it. Because writing the keynote meant digging through everything. It meant reopening wounds I'd learned to code over. It meant asking myself questions I wasn't sure I had answers to. Like, Had I really forgiven them? Or was I doing all this to help others, or just to prove I wasn't a failure? I didn't tell my family about the speech. Not at first. But Mom found out. Of course she did. She called me one night, her voice cautious but proud. They called me for a quote, she said. About you. I told them, you were always the most determined person in the room. That meant more than I expected. Ryan sent me a one-line text. If you need backup in DC, I'll carry your damn bag. Even Dad, awkward, quiet, left a voicemail. Heard about the speech. I'll be watching. Just wanted you to know that. Still, I was scared. The night before, I sat in my hotel room staring at my laptop screen, rewriting the first line for the 7th time. Hi, my name is Leo Martinez, and I used to hate my voice. Delete. My name is Leo, and I grew up thinking silence was safer than speaking. Delete. I couldn't find the beginning because I was still afraid of the middle. Then I thought about Emily, Claire's daughter, the girl who now ran the after-school robotics club, who had emailed me just last week to say, I gave my first speech, and I didn't cry once. That was it. That was the reason. Not legacy. Not applause. Not even closure. Just the chance that one person in that audience, one scared kid, one quiet parent, one forgotten teacher, might see themselves in me and feel less alone. I slept 4 hours. The morning came fast. I wore a black blazer and a soft gray tee under it. No tie. No armor. The room was massive. Over 800 people. Bright lights. Cameras. Screens showing my face from angles I didn't ask for. My throat went dry. Hands shook. But I stepped up. And I spoke. Hi. My name is Leo Martinez. I'm a CEO. I'm a coder. And I grew up afraid to say my own name. Silence. Then, I'm not here to tell you a tech story. I'm here to tell you a human one. I paused. Looked out. I used to think success would fix everything. That if I built something useful enough, smart enough, if I worked hard enough, the world would finally see me as whole. I took a breath. But that's not how healing works. You don't fix yourself by outperforming your pain. You fix yourself by facing it. By naming it. By owning the voice they told you to bury. I looked at the front row and locked eyes with a young man wearing a name badge that said James, him, student guest. He had his fists clenched in his lap. Eyes wide. Like he needed this. I smiled. I built Speak Soft for kids like me. But the truth is, I needed it, too. I needed to build something that reminded me I wasn't broken. I just spoke a different language. Pause. My platform helped others communicate. But what saved me was finally telling my story. Applause. It grew. And it didn't stop. After the speech, people lined up to talk to me. Shake my hand. Share their own stories. A father with a son who wouldn't speak. A woman who hadn't told anyone she'd stuttered until her 40s. A teacher who said, I'm going to start listening differently. I held it together until I got to the hotel. Then I collapsed on the bed, fully dressed, and cried like I hadn't in years. It wasn't grief. It wasn't relief. It was something in between. Something that said, you did it. You didn't just survive. You spoke. And this time, the whole room heard you. People called me an inspiration. I still woke up feeling like I was faking it. 2 days after the keynote, my inbox exploded. Requests. Invitations. Praise. TEDx organizers. University panels. A podcast hosted by a Hollywood actor I didn't even know followed tech. People called me brave. Visionary. A role model. But I just felt tired. Not tired from the trip. Not even from the speaking. Tired from carrying the weight of becoming a symbol. Because no one tells you that when you share your pain publicly, the world will sometimes want to turn it into content. They want the neat arc. The redemptive twist. The polished soundbite. They don't always want the messy parts. The days where you still hesitate before speaking. The nights when your old shame creeps in like a familiar cold draft under the door. The dreams where you're 10 years old again, stuck in front of the classroom with no words coming out. They want transformation, not truth. And truth? Truth is I still struggle. Every week, I lead a team of brilliant minds and still double-check my words before each call, afraid I'll slip. I've coded features that help thousands speak more fluently, and some days I still dodge phone calls because I'm not ready to hear myself. So when the national media reached out 60 Minutes, The New Yorker, even a segment pitch for Ellen, I paused. For the first time, I wasn't sure I wanted to be more visible. That's when my therapist, yes, I finally started going, asked me something. Leo, she said gently, what would 10-year-old you want you to do? I thought about that boy. Small. Stammering. shoulders hunched under the weight of expectation and disappointment. The boy who felt invisible, yet too exposed. He wouldn't want more lights. He'd want rest. So I said no to all of it. No to the TV appearances. No to the keynote tour. No to the profile spreads with perfectly staged photos of me inspiring the next generation. And then, something I never expected happened. I got an email from one of our earliest users. Subject line: "Thank you for building the thing that let me be heard." It was from a college student named Amina. She used SpeakSoft all through high school, someone who'd faced not only a speech disorder, but cultural barriers that told her women should stay quiet. Her email was long, raw, unfiltered. She told me she'd just given a graduation speech in front of 400 people. "I still stuttered," she wrote, "but I didn't stop. Because of your app. And because you told your story." I stared at the screen for a long time. Because that was the real reason I'd built SpeakSoft. Not for panels. Not for applause. For the Aminas of the world. For the kids like me. For the people who needed tools and truth. That night, I sat on the balcony of my apartment, sipping coffee as the city hummed quietly beneath me. And I asked myself the hardest question yet. Do I want to keep running this company? It wasn't burnout. It was something deeper. I'd built SpeakSoft out of pain, out of necessity, out of a need to prove I could do something meaningful. But now, maybe my purpose wasn't scaling. Maybe it was something smaller, more personal. That's when I made the decision. I called David, my co-founder. "Hey," I said, "I've been thinking. I want to start grooming someone to replace me as CEO." Silence. "You leaving?" he asked, not angry, just surprised. "Not right away," I said, "but I think I've done what I came here to do." David didn't argue. He just said, "Whatever's next, Leo, make sure it's yours." So I started writing again. Not code, not grant proposals. Stories. Real ones. The ones I never got to tell. The ones people like me never saw growing up. About stuttering, shame, family, quiet boys who found loud purpose. And every story began the same way. My name is Leo Martinez, and I used to hate my voice. But now it's the thing I trust most. They used to call me broken. Now kids with voices like mine call me teacher. It's been 18 months since I stepped down as CEO. We hired Mira, our former head of ops, to take over. She's sharper than I ever was, and under her, SpeakSoft's grown into new territory: language learning, voice AI moderation, even collaboration with major education systems across Europe. I still consult, now and then. But these days, I spend my mornings in a classroom. Not a fancy university or speaking circuit. A modest community center in East Oakland, with flickering lights and mismatched desks. And every Tuesday and Thursday, I sit with a group of kids, ages 9 to 14, many of whom stutter, or mutter, or don't speak at all. They call it Tech Club, but really, it's a room for the unheard. No one forces them to talk here. They code, build, type, design. Some use SpeakSoft. Others just scribble ideas on whiteboards and ask me to bring them to life. And every week, one of them, at least one, asks the same question. "Were you really like us?" And I smile. Every time. "Yes," I say. "I still am." Because that's the truth I wish someone had told me at 10 years old. That you don't outgrow your difference. You grow with it. You carry it like a tool, maybe even a gift, if you let it teach you. Last week, a boy named Jasper finally unmuted himself in our video editor project. He looked up from his laptop, blinking nervously. I've made a THTH thing," he said, then held up a short animation, a digital stick figure standing at a podium, stammering through his name, then transforming into a superhero. I couldn't speak. All I did was high-five him. And in that moment, I realized something. This was my legacy. Not the awards. Not the app. Not even the speeches. But the quiet, radical joy of showing one kid, just one, that his voice matters. I still get emails from parents, students, journalists. Some ask if I'll write a book. Others want to license my story. A few just send thanks, often with PS lines that say, "My child stutters too." And I answer each one the same way. With kindness. With honesty. With a reminder. I'm not special. I'm just someone who didn't stop speaking. Sometimes, I visit my parents. Dad's slower now. Softer. He doesn't talk much about the past, but when I arrive, he always says the same thing. "Your room's still yours, you know." And maybe that's his way of saying I'll always belong, even if it took him too long to say it. Mom prints out every article I'm in. She keeps them in a green folder labeled Leo for when he forgets. I don't open it often, but knowing it exists is enough. Ryan still works at Speaksoft. He's mentoring new hires now. He once told me, "It's weird, they come to me for advice, but I still hear your voice in my head first." I told him that made two of us. Sometimes, I look in the mirror and still see that kid with the hunched shoulders and quiet eyes. But now I also see a man who spoke anyway, who stuttered through doubt, and still built something that lasted. And every time I open the door to Tech Club, and the kids shout, "Leo's here," I remember what it means to be heard. Even if your voice cracks, even if it shakes, even if it takes a while to come out, it still matters. Always has. Always will.